everyone, Alex at Corumdale Farm. We are a year 3 Oklahoma flower farm selling retail market bouquets from our roadside stand. We have just wrapped up year 2, which was absolutely wonderful. Our flower stand sold out almost every single time we were open. Our customers absolutely loved the bouquets that we had. And if you're new to our channel, we have lots of videos about how we run a successful flower stand and what we think goes into making it successful. And so I can link some of those videos. But the reason for this video, which is like Marketing 101, is because we have been able to build a sizable Facebook following in just about a year and a half's time. And that's one of the main reasons we've been able to drive so much traffic and success in our roadside stand. And so throughout our YouTube videos and over on Facebook, we get requests a lot about marketing questions. What do I do? What do I post? Social media is overwhelming. I don't like social media. I don't know how to use it. I don't know what to do. Help, help, help. So I've been teasing it a bit in a couple of our lives and our videos that I was working on getting my notes together and organized so we could do a Flower Farm Marketing 101 video series. I've decided to break the videos up into a couple parts. One, so that it doesn't become overwhelming and you can kind of watch them at your pace and as you're able to, and also to give them themes. So in part 1 here, we are going to talk a lot of foundational things about social media. What it is, what the algorithm is, how the algorithm works, how to use social media, the pros and cons of social media, just a big meta, no pun intended, social media discussion. And then in part 2, we're going to get very, very practical, and I'm going to walk you through how to post on Facebook and Instagram. Not like everyone knows how to post, but I mean like what to post, when to post, content ideas, how to read analytics, how to understand how to best utilize social media to build your following and thus build your flower farm. And the end objective of all of this is more sales. All right, so let's get started. If you're new to our channel, again with our farm, we started selling July 2022. We started with a summer season, not a spring season. So our first sales was sometime in July. That was year 1, and then we just completed year 2, which is spring, summer, and fall, and now we've planted and we're preparing to go into year 3. As I said, we started selling in July of 2022, but all of our social media accounts were created and we started posting March of 2022. So we are a year and 3 quarters in to having social media accounts for our flower farm. And to give you a couple statistics so I can share a little bit of why I think I can speak on this subject, is in that less than 2 years, we have 4,000 followers on Facebook. We have 1,600 on Instagram. And then of course there's YouTube, but I'm separating that a bit because a YouTube channel is not necessary for the success of a flower farm, like I would argue Facebook and Instagram would be. So we've built a great following. I think it has been noticeable that we do put a lot of effort into our marketing. And so I'm not an expert. I don't have, there's like whole YouTube channels that are legitimately created to talk about different social media platforms, how to be an influencer and post and blah, blah, blah. I'm not that. I haven't taken classes and stuff, but I have been very observational in what happens on these platforms, and I've been able to utilize them to build the following that I just told you about. And so I also think because I haven't taken a bunch of classes and stuff, I don't know all of the technical terms that some of these other channels can get into. And so I hope that actually works to our benefit because I won't overwhelm you with really technical niche down terms, because in every industry, every platform, you can go from like very basic 101 to such a deep end of overwhelming detail and code and data analytics and all of that. And that is deeper than we need to go as flower farmers to be successful. So I'm going to try to keep this very easily digestible, easy to understand, and then in part 2, very easy to apply. So if you're new to our channel, again, give us the subscribe, give us the like so that you can see when part 2 comes out. But I hope this discussion we're about to have about social media leaves you feeling like you understand these platforms better and you feel more encouraged about being able to be successful. Here we go. So first up, I have to answer the question. I've got my notes. Normally I tend to just like wing it and chat with you guys, but because I love marketing and social media, I probably could rabbit trail 15 different directions and this video would be 3 hours long, and that's not really helpful. So I typed all of my notes. I have all of my categories so I can go through them in a very organized way that hopefully means you can follow along easily. So my first point was why social media, and that might seem obvious to some of you, but it's really not. I think that I need to make a case for why social media is an incredibly valuable tool. And I don't think it's a wise option if you are a small business, and especially if you're a flower farmer, to write off social media, whether it's emotionally because you don't like it or you just haven't seen the value of it yet. I want to make the pitch that social media is incredibly important and it's incredibly valuable. First, obvious reason, almost everyone's on social media. It's pretty rare to meet someone, especially a woman who tends to be the main flower purchaser, to not have social media. Now, of course, not everyone has every single social media. My husband has Facebook. He doesn't have Instagram. I'm never going to be on TikTok, that sort of thing. But pretty much every female is going to be on social media. So they're already there. You know where your customer and your audience is. Also, our society has very much been shaped to have a buying habit around social media. We can pretend like phone books and mailers in the mailbox are how people purchase, but it's just simply not the case. We know that people are used to purchasing online, or they're used to finding out about businesses online. And now they might then go and purchase on location, go to the brick or mortar store, but we are all very much used to interacting with businesses online. Additionally, social media is a free tool. So we'll get into in future parts talking about like email marketing and having a website, but those cost money. And like with everything, it has a tiered cost. And so you can get really swallowed up very quickly in spending a lot of money going that direction. Social media is free. That's a big deal, especially when you're starting, especially when you're a year 1 or 2 or even 3-year-old farm. Having a free tool that can generate sales for you is a really big deal for your bottom line. Also, it is, even though I'm doing a video here on it, it is easy to use. You do not need special classes or special training in order to use it. I mean, yes, you can also build a website without those things but you often pay for it. You pay for services, more money that will walk you through it, or you know code and you have to know a lot more detailed technical information to use those platforms to their benefit. Social media has a very low barrier to entry. I really believe that all of us can figure out how to use social media effectively. And lastly, it's a very visually based platform. It really lends itself to photos and video, and people are scrolling with their eyes to look at beautiful things. And if flower farming is not a beautiful job, I don't know what the definition of a beautiful job is. We are in a business that sells beauty and a luxury item. And so using social media that really focuses on pictures and video and sharing visual content with people, this is where we need to be. We have these products. So that's my pitch for why I would encourage you not to write off social media, but to put yourself in the mindset of, okay, maybe I'm not naturally good at it. Maybe I don't naturally love social media myself, but I see where the value is for my farm, for my business. And so I'm going to work towards learning how to use it effectively, because it is what's going to bring me more money. I might not love it. It might not be my favorite part of my day, but I'm not going to fight against it. I'm just going to accept and include it into my business plan because I see that it can be really valuable. That would be the case I would want to make to you. Now, when I say social media, there's a million different platforms, and there's always something new that pops up. But what I primarily want to talk about in these videos is Facebook and Instagram. They're the biggest American ones. It's where most of our customers are hanging out, and it lends itself the most to a small business in the way that perhaps TikTok is much more of a creator platform, meaning the big accounts on TikTok, they're monetized because of all of the videos they're making and the sponsorships they're doing. They're not as much selling like a physical product like a flower farmer is. And so I'm also not gonna ever put TikTok on my phone or do any of that. So I want to talk mainly about Facebook and Instagram. It's what we use on our farm. It's what's driven sales and our success for our farm. So those are the platforms I'm going to focus on. I also think it's helpful to not feel overwhelmed with all of that by focusing on just a couple platforms. First up is Facebook. Just a little overview about Facebook, because Facebook and Instagram are very different. Yes, they're owned by the same company, but they still operate differently. And we're going to go through how they operate differently and why it's important to know that, because you're going to want to tailor your content differently and you want to tailor your time allotment differently on those platforms depending on who you're trying to target and how these platforms operate, who they attract, all of that. So Facebook, most of your customers are likely going to be on Facebook as a percentage. Now, if you are a flower farm that only sells wholesale to florists, this might not be the case. But if you sell retail in any capacity, Instagram is where most of your customers are going to be. Additionally, and I say this with affection, boomers, an older generation customer, feels very comfortable on the Facebook platform. There are more boomers on the Facebook platform. They know generally how to use it, or at the very least, they feel comfortable. They have a Facebook account. They know how to post and comment. They know how to scroll. They check it daily. It's part of their comfortable social media routine. Instagram, not as much. Now, of course, there are boomers on Instagram. Yes, I would say when you look at the demographics of Instagram, though, it's a much smaller percentage. And that's something to keep in mind, especially if you sell retail and you've paid attention to who your customers are that come and buy flowers for you. If your average customer is over the age of 50 plus, my guess would be they found you or see more of your content on Facebook than they do Instagram. If you're selling DIY wedding flowers to brides, or you're selling to florists, that will probably shift a bit more into the Instagram category, and we'll talk about why in a minute. So older customers feel very comfortable on the Facebook platform. And then lastly with Facebook, it's easier to convey information, like written information on Facebook, because Facebook still values the caption. And so when you post on Facebook, it has the caption, and then it has the picture, and then all the comments and the like feature. So you could even write in paragraphs if you wanted on Facebook. It is a great platform for telling a story about your farm in written word, conveying sales information, giving people details about your opening hours or some upcoming event that you have. Anything you really want to write down and convey, that is going to be better promoted on Facebook. They still like that format and they haven't changed it all that much. Instagram, on the other hand, Instagram is very much a visual focused space. So florists love to be on Instagram because they're looking to show the creativity of their work, not so much their words, but here's a bridal bouquet I made, here's a wedding event I did, here's photography of my flowers, here is what I have available. And then likewise, florists are looking for pictures of your flowers and your color palette and what you have to offer. And so they tend to hang out more on Instagram. And so if you are just selling wholesale and you're trying to attract local florists in your area to buy flowers from you, it might actually be more worth your time to be posting a lot of pictures of your offerings, of your inventory of your flowers on Instagram, because that's where they're hanging out. Or if you're selling, you're doing full service weddings, you're doing a la carte weddings, you're doing DIY wedding buckets, brides are going to be hanging out on Instagram because they're trying to get visual inspiration for their weddings. That's probably where they found their florist and their photographer. So they're also going to be wanting to look at what flowers you grow and what they might be able to buy from you. So they're going to be hanging out there. And then in general, Instagram has a younger age demographic that's on its platform. It just simply does. That's just how it is. Let me make sure I got to my main points. And then yes, in contrast, Instagram is very focused on reels, so video and photography. And then it gives you a chance to do a caption. But if you noticed on Instagram, it's the opposite of Facebook. You see the picture first. You have a very small caption window, which you typically have to click read more after like 1.5 sentences. And then you're on to the next picture. Or even with reels. I mean, you can put a caption on reels, but in your own consumption of Instagram, how many times when you're watching a reel do you actually click to read the caption? They make it really difficult to read in the way that they embed it. Like they're trying to push visual content, whereas Facebook is much more designed for the written word with an accompanying picture. So those are kind of the two differences in the platforms. We'll get into this in part 2 of like tactics, but yes, because they're owned, you can cross post, but we'll get into why I don't always think that's the wisest thing. Yes, you can cross post. Yes, it can save you time, and we'll talk about when to use that. But if you noticed, I just gave you 2 very different platforms with very different customers and demographics. And so it would be more logical to provide content on those platforms that those platforms want, that they want to see, that they will promote and support, instead of just doing one generic thing and blasting it off into all platforms because you just want to do something once. I don't tactically think that that's the smartest thing, but we'll go through that. And then also with social media, you hear a lot about like email marketing. I'm not going to go through a bunch of details of email marketing on this video, but I wanted to acknowledge it and talk about why it is a positive thing and we should work towards it. But it does not need to be your first and foremost thought. I would put most of your new energy as a younger farm into Facebook and Instagram, and not as much into email marketing. Email marketing is great because it is what you would call an owned space in the way that Facebook and Instagram is rented. You don't own that space. It could disappear at any minute, and all of your customers go with it when it disappears. When you have an email list, they're yours. You know, unless they unsubscribe, that is owned by you, and you control when, how often, and what your customers on your email list see. So an email newsletter list, an email list on your website is very valuable, and you should definitely be working towards collecting emails and knowing that that is in your future. But the downside of email marketing is it does take a long time to build a list. It takes a lot more effort and a lot more time to add to your email list in the opposite way that you could build followers at a fairly fast pace on Facebook and Instagram. So to give you kind of very real world examples of that, we launched our newsletter and email list this fall. I went into it with 150 emails that we had captured from customers at the flower stand. And in about 5 weeks, we've gone from 150 to 300 emails. So I've doubled it. So I've gotten 150 emails in 5 weeks. On Facebook, I'll get 150 followers a week. That's a really big difference. And so looking at email lists is a bit of a longer slog, like it's a long-term goal to continue to try to capture the emails of customers is really valuable, but you'll be able to make much faster progress and have a faster impact focusing on Facebook and Instagram in the beginning. So that's my pitch. Email marketing, good. but it's a longer term slow goal than Facebook and Instagram can be for you. All right, now we get into the fun stuff. We're going to talk about the big giant elephant looming monster in the room known as the algorithm. We know generally what an algorithm is. We know it exists, but most people have no idea how it exists, what is it even doing? Like, I know you're here. I know you're in the room with me right now, elephant. What are you doing? And how do I understand you so that you can be on my team and help me, elephant algorithm? So we're going to talk about the algorithm. So the algorithm, let me back up. The algorithm is there because we must remember, first and foremost, 101 foundational level. We need to understand that social media companies are businesses. They didn't create a free platform out of the kindness of their own heart so that we can post our Dear Diary posts all day and everyone sees it. That's not why social media exists. Social media companies exist so that people stay on their platform and consume the other ads and stuff that make them content. So they buy things, they're looking at ads. Facebook and Instagram make money as long as you're staying on those platforms. And so the algorithm exists on those companies to try to create a feed on your phone, on your computer that keeps you on Facebook. So if you open Facebook and it's just a bunch of like junk nonsense being thrown at you that you could care less, well, what are you going to do? You're going to immediately click away and go do something else. So the algorithm is existing entirely for the consumer's experience to keep them on the platform. And so once we understand that very first principle of what it's doing, it helps us to start to understand what kind of content we need to create that works with what the objectives are of Facebook and Instagram, which is that people like the content and they stay on the platform wanting to consume more of it. If you're creating content that people don't care about, well, the algorithm's not going to benefit you because people have swiped past it or they've X'd out of it. It's not keeping people at their company, on their platform. So that's the big reason why an algorithm exists. And it's not as if you just post and then everything is done chronologically in your feed. The algorithm very much does not work chronologically. It is working to keep you on the app, keep you on the platform. So that's the 101 big version. The algorithms also work differently on Facebook and Instagram. They're looking for different things. And the reason for that, like we went over before, is it attracts different people and different people want different things out of those platforms. And so the algorithm is going to look for different, what are called signals, to make the decisions about what they put in front of people's eyes. And so we'll go through what those different signals are on those two platforms, which again, I think validates the point I made previously, which is it's not always the wisest course to create one piece of content and then just blast it out everywhere, because the algorithm that takes that content on each platform is going to assess it differently. And it might not actually, the algorithm on one platform may not like it as much as the other one. So let's go through it. Let's go through the big elephant. The Facebook algorithm. We'll go through this one first. The algorithm is evaluating every single piece of content. So every post, every story, every reel, every ad, and it's scoring this content and then it's arranging it in descending non-chronological order on an individual user's feed. And every single time you pull up the app and you swipe down to refresh it and your feed is repopulated, that was the algorithm at work, doing all of that scoring, all of that signal analysis to create a feed for you. And so therefore, everyone's feed is going to look different, and it's going to be based on a couple different factors we'll go through right now. But that's what the algorithm is doing. It's scoring, and then it's arranging based on those scores. Okay, so the things that it's looking at, first off, it's looking at who posted it, who was the content creator. And on Facebook, you're always going to see more content from the people you interact with. So if you always like this company's posts, or you comment on this friend's posts all the time, or you share or you like content in any sort of regular way, the algorithm is going to score those people's content higher on your feed. And so you're going to see it more often. And so sometimes you might think like, oh, my cousin Brittany must post on Facebook all the time because I constantly see her stuff at the top of my feed. Well, no, not necessarily. Are you liking most of Cousin Brittany's posts? And if you are, well, then that's Facebook saying you want to see more of her content. Again, you will stay on the platform because there's interesting content to you. That's going to be bumped to the top of your feed. And so who's posting it based on your interaction is a big deal. It's a big deal. And then also the type of content is being assessed. So do you love to look at stories and reels on Facebook? And so you really like videos and stories. Facebook's going to show you more of that content because that's what you're interacting with most. Do you like Facebook groups a lot? Are you always in Facebook groups liking and commenting? Well, in your feed, Facebook's going to put more groups and pages in your content rather than individual people, because the algorithm is thinking that's how you like to operate on Facebook. You like Facebook groups. You like pages and businesses to interact with, not so much Cousin Brittany. They're going to push you more of the content that you interact with. And then lastly, Facebook is always going to prioritize content that has a lot of interactions. And so you might have noticed on your own personal feed, you will be scrolling and they'll show you something you haven't seen before, and it's a Facebook group or it's a Facebook page, and it has like 6.5 thousand likes and comments, you know, and you're like, well, that was a funny meme, or that's an interesting product. They're pushing that up on your feed because of all of the engagement that post got. And so Facebook very much incentivizes and prioritizes high engagement content. So those are the big things about Facebook. It's who posted it, what kind of content it is, and if it has a high engagement rate, the Facebook algorithm is very much going to pay attention to those things and tailor your feed accordingly. So that was Facebook. Let's go over Instagram. Instagram does the same thing in the sense that it's looking for signals and it's ranking things in non-chronological order in a user's feed. But the Instagram algorithm is going to be looking for slightly different things. So the Instagram algorithm it's going to always put first or front load content you regularly interact with. So in that sense, it's very different or very similar to Facebook. So like when you open Instagram and your favorite flower farm story is always like the first circle in the story circle lineup, you might be tempted to think like, oh, they just post in their stories a lot. But really what's happening is the algorithm is prioritizing in that order farms or content you interact with. And so if you were to ever scroll those bubbles, the farther you scroll those circles, the least interacted with you're getting, which is why sometimes you might think, well, I haven't seen so-and-so post in a while. Well, if you haven't interacted with their content, Instagram is not going to prioritize showing it to you. And so they might actually have been posting a lot, but the algorithm is not going to prioritize it in your feed because you haven't told it you want to see that content. So if you have very low engagement rates, your customers or your followers are not going to be seeing your content quite as much. And then this is where it does get different. Instagram really likes to prioritize reels and video over and above feed posts. So you might have always wondered like, why when I'm looking at stories do I see content creators share their post into stories so that I have to click on it? That's because Facebook or Instagram algorithm is not really prioritizing feed content as much as they are stories and video. And so that content creator is trying to drive you to that feed post for some reason. Typically there's something in the caption that they want to share with you, but they're double posting it essentially because the algorithm doesn't prioritize that kind of content quite as much. But videos and reels are very much prioritized. There's been a lot of complaints to Instagram about this because Instagram very much started as a photo and caption feed-based platform, and then it's really moved away from that, and it's much more focused on video creation and reels. I'm sure you've all noticed that all the top flower farmers are constantly creating reels and stories. And there's big complaint, and the Instagram CEO says they're going to try to change the algorithm a bit to equalize it a bit more and to start prioritizing feed posts more and more. But I wouldn't bet on that algorithm change really being noticeable yet. So it wants a lot of video, it wants a lot of reels and stories and visual content creation, not as much main feed posts. And then additionally, in your main feed where you're scrolling, not the stories, but when you're scrolling, this is where it's different than Facebook. Instagram likes to prioritize discovering new content. And so the algorithm on Instagram is not looking to push in your feed really high engagement posts, but more things they think you might have found interesting. So do you ever wonder why like you're scrolling reels and you watched like, I don't know, let's just say like a couple reindeer videos that you thought were funny, and then all of a sudden there is a bunch of random reindeer content in your feed when you're scrolling. Well, that's because the algorithm on Instagram is not just going to show you the top content on the platform. They're trying to assess what you like to see. And so they're like, well, she was in a big reindeer mood today, so like, let's give her all the reindeers. That's how Instagram is working, because they're trying to have you discover new and more content to keep it really interesting, for you to follow more people, to look at more things, and to stay on the platform because it's really interesting. Whereas Facebook is much more like community and discussion based. And so they're incentivized to show you really high engagement content because that's what's keeping people on the platform. Because I mean, we all joke about like Facebook comment fights. There's very rarely like Instagram comment fights, you know, and community debates and discussion and written word over on Instagram like there is Facebook. So that's why these algorithms are operating very differently. Okay, so stick with me. I know some of your eyes kind of glazed over with all of that algorithm talk, and it felt overwhelming, and you feel kind of like, this seems like a lot of work. This seems really hard, but it's doable. This is beginner level. We can do it. Let's push through. We can keep going. So I just pitched why social media is important. I just explained to you how the platforms are different, how they're utilized differently, how we need to think about them differently. But let's talk now about how to use social media. It's like, okay, you've convinced me that social media is important. Now, why am I going to use it? What is the importantness that it has? And the big reason is that I just moved my notes and I still needed them. It's because, I mean, you can obviously build a following. So I talked about how we've built a following, how we've really reached a lot of local following. Now we have more flower farmers following us too, which is really wonderful. But when I look at my analytics and the demographics, our followers on Facebook are still primarily Oklahoma people that will actually buy flowers from us, people that are local to us, people that are in the Tulsa metro region where our farm is. And so we've built quite the local following on social media. Another value of social media is it's a really easy and important and free way to convey sales information. So the roadside stand is opening. I always post about that. Or your CSAs are about to come up. Or you are launching a new website. These sorts of things. You can convey all of these details to people on social media on a free platform. You know, we did used to have back in the day like postcard mailers that you had to format and then you had to pay to get printed, and then the postage, and you had to mail them in order to convey information that you could simply put together on a Facebook post on a Monday morning and send out for free, and all that same information is conveyed to your local customers. That's a really big deal. That's a really wonderful tool to use in your business. You also can use social media as a way to just provide content for your followers to enjoy. So not every Facebook or Instagram post is just a sales post. It's not just all the mailbox mailer. You want to build through story and through content creation an affection and an attachment your followers and your customers have to your farm. You want them to be able to think like, I have the option to go to Walmart or buy flowers, or to Corumdale Farm and buy flowers. And one of the reasons they might make a different choice there is not simply a price analysis, but it's like, hey, I watched Alex and Eric plant those peonies that are for sale. I remember when they first put those in the ground. I remember, and that was so fun watching them put up their high tunnel. And now the ranunculus are blooming. My high tunnel post was not a sales post, but fast forward 6 months when I start promoting our ranunculus for sale, my customers will have had such a content journey through social media. They'll remember getting to see all of that, and they'll be excited, and they'll mark the date on their calendar when the stand is going to open, because I created all of this enjoyable content for them. So it's not just the raw, I have flowers for sale, come give me money post, but the whole story you can build around your brand for why people will say, I get my flowers from X, because they fully identify with their business. They love the owners, they love the story, and frankly, they love you showing up in their feed regularly to share with them stuff. They can learn about flowers, they can see what's going on. They get to see beautiful flowers that just picks them up that day. They might have been having a bad day, but your pictures and caption, brought a smile to their face, that sort of thing. You can use social media to tell the story of your business, of your farm. You can also, while we'll talk in part 2 about tactics, about not putting links as much in your captions and why not to do that, you can still sell CSAs and event tickets, direct people to your website. You can use social media as a way to direct people to sell other things that you have going on. You can do that. You can direct people toward your email list. You can use it as a way to kind of like try to filter them in a different direction as well. Like if you're trying to build your email list and that sort of thing, using the free tool of social media to kind of herd them in that direction also is really valuable. That's what I'm trying to do, hopefully tactfully, as we try to build out our email list, is to take all of my followers that we've built on social media and like gently get them to give me their email so I can have that owned content creation, not just be beholden to this algorithm that we're spending all this time talking about. And then lastly, about why social media, it's a free landing page for your business. Yes, you can have a website. Websites cost money. Websites can take a lot of time, especially if you want them to be a bit fancier. That does cost money, and it takes time to understand how to build out those websites. And like I said, a lot of customers are used to going on Facebook to interact with small businesses. And sometimes, more often than not, your website isn't going to be the first place they look. It's going to be Facebook. And so what does your Facebook or Instagram business page look like? What is your customer's experience when they go on that page? And it can either leave a bad taste in their mouth because it's poorly managed, or it can be a wonderful experience. You get the follow, you get the purchase. They think you're a legitimate professional business that they're excited to purchase from on a free platform. That is a wonderful use of social media. And again, in part 2, we'll go through what your page should look like. What does a good professional business page look like on Facebook and Instagram, that when a customer goes there, you've given them what they're looking for. So now those are all the positives that I talked about. But let's talk about some of the reasons y'all don't like social media. And if I haven't convinced you yet and you're still grumbling, maybe I'm about to mention, how you feel about social media. But there's definitely, I think more often than not, a negative feeling towards social media from the business owner's standpoint. Like we might like social media to consume on our own, when we're privately on our profiles and feeds, we might enjoy Instagram and stuff. But when we put on our small business owner hat, we start to gnash our teeth a bit thinking about social media. And some of the reasons is you just don't understand how the algorithm works. You know it exists. You know that it is really helpful to some people, but you don't know how it works. And so hopefully going over what we just did was helpful and maybe kind of like crossed that off your worry list a bit, where you feel like, okay, at least I understand what it's doing now, and it's not so much of a mystery explaining the algorithm. Another reason would be you don't know what to post. So content creation is a big tension and frustration point. You're like, okay, fine, Alex. I know I need to be on social media. I understand about the algorithm elephant, but I'm still stumped about what do I do? What do I post? What do I say? I'm nervous, or I feel uninspired, or I don't have pictures. All of that, the frustration of actually creating the content on social media can be one of the reasons why people really, really don't like it. Another reason can be feeling discouraged with low engagement. So you're trying to put posts out there. You're trying, you've listened to me or others and said like, okay, I know I need to post. I know social media is important, but when I post, I get like 5 likes and 2 of them are my aunts and cousin. And I don't feel like I'm getting traction. And so that low engagement just discourages me. It's hard to feel incentivized and have momentum to keep going when it feels like, you're just kind of posting into the air and nothing is really happening. That definitely can be a reason why social media isn't your favorite. Another big problem, and we talked a little bit about this in our latest live video chat I did with Eric with me, is the comparison trap. We can't make a video on social media and not talk about the downsides of social media and the comparison traps you can fall into and the emotions that very much can become involved with social media. It is, everyone says like social media is a highlight reel, and it is. There is a reason why social media is a highlight reel, because when you have some downtime and some free time for entertainment, you don't want everything to be like someone like doing a video crying about their tragic life. Like it's not going to keep you coming back to the platform. That's not uplifting. It's not inspirational. It's not funny. It's not exciting. It's not interesting. And so there's a reason why a lot of content is a highlight reel, and it's not always real life. It's not always like transparently what actually might be happening, or it's just an accumulation of just like some really beautiful pictures. But I joke in previous videos where it's like, I'll show you the bouquets and then we'll scroll down to the floor and it just looks like absolute like trash mess anarchy. And it's like, well, you don't always just want to see the floor. You want to see the beautiful product. So that does happen on social media, because by nature, that's what social media is. But on the other hand, if all you're consuming is this like amazing creator content and beautiful, well-edited Instagram reels and the flower pictures of year 7, year 10 flower farms, it's not that hard to just completely get in your head and get really frustrated with, well, my Instagram reel is not going to look like that, or my bouquet shot, I don't have 75 bouquets where I had to stand on a chair to take the picture. There's so many, I have 10, sort of thing. And it can feel really discouraging, and you can get in your head and feel like either embarrassed or just like, I'm frustrated and I don't like it, or she has more followers than I do, or she got more likes on her reel, looking at maybe your competition and stuff. It's super, super easy to just really emotionally start to resent social media. That's one of the reasons why in our live, I made I feel very strongly about this, the very strong suggestion that your follow list, like on Instagram where it says following or who you like and follow on Facebook. This probably applies a bit more in the Instagram world. I believe strongly that your following list should be very small. When I look at accounts that are like 500 followers and they're following 400, it's usually other flower farms and stuff. I don't think that's the best for feeling really confident and energized when you interact with social media. I think that's a really easy way to fall into this comparison trap and to get really drained emotionally with your own content creation when you are constantly and unendingly consuming flower farming content. And it very quickly can pass from being inspirational to being a complete, frustrating discouragement comparison trap. So my suggestion would be follow, people that you feel like you need to follow. Like, she followed me and has been really supportive of me, so I'm going to give her a follow. I don't really look at her content, but I'm going to give her a follow. That's totally fine. But then really curate your list to include content creators and flower farms that you do feel encouraged by or inspired by. And that might be a couple of really big farms where you're like, I absolutely love how this farmer grows her flowers, or I love how she arranges her bouquets, or her Instagram reels are so funny and they make me smile. Those are people that you should follow. But if you're following every single flower farm in like a 20-mile radius from you because they're competition and you want to just like see what they're doing, stop doing that. It's really not going to help you mentally, and it's not going to be inspirational for your own content creation. So just to beat a dead horse a bit on this comparison trap, it is fine to not follow that many people and to be very controlled in who you seek inspiration and encouragement from, and to kind of have those blinders on where it's like, I'm learning from this farm, I'm inspired by this farm to keep going and create my content, and I'm just going to let go a lot of the other clutter. Like, I wish her farm well. I hope she's successful. That farm is beautiful, but my eyes don't need to consume 400 flower farm worth of content every single day and think that that's bringing me value. So that's my rant. That's my permission to go through a big old purge. And I do feel strongly that I think you'll actually feel really free by doing that, and actually more encouraged to keep up with your own content creation when it's not just the endless influx of comparison of what everyone else is doing. So there's that. I'll stop ranting on that one. And then the last reason I wrote down, and I'm sure that there's others maybe, and if there are others, feel free to comment about them. But another one I thought of is it's hard to get launched. It's really hard to start with like 15 followers and you don't have flowers yet because you're just in the very beginning of year one and you feel like, okay, I'm trying, I want this, I want followers, I want to be able to post, but I just don't have my own pictures yet. We're not selling yet. I planted the tulip bulbs, but we don't have them yet. So what do I do? That can be a frustration tension point, and we'll talk about it in part 2 of what I think you can do when you're starting out and you don't, have a full Facebook folder or a iPhone folder full of your own pictures and stuff to use. So those are the tension points, and I'm sensitive to them because it's not easy. Of course, everyone would like to say like, let's just write this off and not use social media. But at some point we have to accept that we live in the world that we live in and not perhaps one that we wished we lived in. And so it would be better to just learn how to do it well so that you can kind of cross off a lot of those tension points and just add it into your task list as a small business owner because it's valuable. So you might not absolutely love it and get excited about it at the end of the day like I do. I think that's fine. I don't think you have to get to that point. But I do think we can move past the hair pulling out, feet stamping response to social media. I think we can work through that. And I hope in part 2 also I can give you a lot of really practical, post this, at this time, and then do this, and really go through that. And you follow maybe some templates, and then as you start to see success, it also becomes easier and more incentivizing when you really start seeing the reasons why social media is valuable. Then it almost snowballs, and you can get better and better at it. But let's talk about here at the end, let's talk about the general keys to success on social media. And then in contrast, we'll go through the general pitfalls. First up, in principles for success, I'm gonna tattoo this on my forehead. I'm gonna make a t-shirt about it for everyone. The biggest keys to success on social media is posting regularly and consistently. That algorithm I told you about is never going to be your friend if you post once a week and you post sporadically. Like sometimes you post at 7 a.m., sometimes you post at 3 p.m., sometimes it's a Tuesday, sometimes it's a Friday. The algorithm is going to be like, girl, you are not helping me. I don't know how to read you. I don't know how to predict you. People aren't looking forward to your content, so they're not interacting with it as much. So I'm just not going to promote it, and it's going to absolutely get buried in someone's feed, or it's not even going to be put in their feed. And so I'm sorry, but please, please, please ignore advice that you hear that says you can just post whenever you want at any time on social media and it's going to be fine. Because if that were the case, the algorithm wouldn't exist and Facebook and Instagram would just dump things through chronologically, and that would be it. And there wouldn't be YouTube channels about Facebook algorithms if that were the case. So consistently and regularly posting. Absolutely the biggest factor in your success is going to be that. Next up is you want to be encouraging engagement. So think back to when we just talked about elephant algorithm. Is that the pronoun of the algorithm? I talked about Facebook and Instagram and how it signals rank posts and content. And on Facebook, for example, it is always going to promote content that has high engagement. And so the fact that my Facebook posts now get a lot of likes and comments means that the algorithm is showing my posts to more and more people. And then obviously you get that snowball effect because then more people are liking it. And it's just like the ever evolving algorithm boost for my content because it has high engagement now. And so again, in part 2, we'll go through exactly some examples of how you kind of engagement farm, as it's called, and try to get that engagement. But when you're thinking about content and you're going to write a caption or post a picture, be thinking about, how do I write something that encourages someone to like the post or to comment, and to not just think, interesting, and then keep their scroll finger going, because them simply seeing it is not really an algorithm trigger in the way that commenting or liking and hearting a post is, or sharing a post is going to be. And so being mindful of, if I'm writing something that people really have no reason to engage with, then you need to redraft. You need to think of a different way to say it, or it needs to be a different picture, or something needs to change to have a mindset towards engagement, because that's what's going to get you more followers too, because Facebook and Instagram are going to put it in front of new people's eyes and new people's feeds, and then hopefully that converts to a follow for you, which is also what you're trying to do on your social media. Another principle for success, this is a big one, we talked about this also in the live that we just did, is talking to your in all capitals here, your customer. Not talking to another flower farmer, not talking to Aunt Sally in Pennsylvania, talking to your customer who ultimately is going to buy your flowers or buy your merch or buy your CSA or come to a U-Pick. Talking to your customer is how you need to decide on what content to post. So if you are a flower farmer on Instagram, creating content, talking to other flower farmers. I think that's a waste of time. Now, the reason for that is not that I don't like other flower farmers, because obviously I love you guys. It's that if you're not monetized, that kind of content creation is not turning into anything profitable for you. Did you hear me? So on YouTube, for example, right now, I'm obviously talking to flower farmers. I'm obviously talking to small business. Well, we're monetized on YouTube. This is part of our brand that we're trying to build. This is part of what we want to be doing with our business. But if you are not monetized on Instagram, and it's very hard to get monetized on Instagram, it takes a long time. You need a lot of followers, a lot of view hours. It's a lot to get monetized on Instagram. If you, let's say, have 300 followers on Instagram, most of them are your local customers because they've bought flowers from you, or it's like a couple friends that are trying to support you, and that's who's on your Instagram. If you make a very technical Instagram reel about bupleurum spacing and frost cloth coverage, because that's what you see from the bigger flower farm accounts, I want you to explain to me and defend to me how that translates into a sale for you. Does sweet, precious Connie down the road, who likes zinnias on her table every Saturday from you, does that content translate to her? It doesn't. It's such a leap for her to understand what you're saying, what you're doing, how it relates to her life, what she does with that content, that's not bringing you a sale, and it's not really even telling that story I was talking about, because it's so clearly an audience that's different than your customer. And so I'm not making the case that you shouldn't spend time on reels. I just think that you need to ask yourself, how can I make content that tell the story of my farm, that connect in some way to my customers, that either get me a follow locally, or they buy my CSA, or they're getting excited for the flower stand to open and I'm building excitement for tulips that are coming. Those ultimately end up in sales. That converts customer-wise because they're buying into your farm. If you are a smaller farm or a newer farm and you're creating the 1 millionth ranunculus corm soaking reel that we've all seen, I don't know if that's worth your time in the way that you could adjust your thinking and say, well, I am planting ranunculus. This is what I'm doing and I'd like to share it. I think you should. But can you tell that story in a way that millennial mom of 3 that just put her kid down to nap and just wants to put her feet up on the couch and scroll through Instagram? Can you make a ranunculus corm reel that she finds interesting or funny, or she just gets excited about the ranunculus being for sale and she knows the vase that she wants to put her flowers in? And can you talk to that mom who has the ability to give you money as a customer locally to your farm? Can you tell a story to her instead of talking to all the other flower farmers that already know that you soak ranunculus corms for 3 hours? Does that make sense? So it's not that I'm saying don't create content. I'm saying always be asking yourself, who am I talking to? And that person I'm talking to should be someone who ultimately keeps my business a business. It is working towards profitability. It's working towards sales. It's the reason I'm in business. And other flower farmers across the country are not that, So it's my little bit of a rant. I know Eric's going to edit this video and say that I'm being a little ranty, but I just feel really strongly that, we went through all of these reasons that social media can be a challenge, and I think they're completely valid. How much more so is social media going to be frustrating if we're also wasting our time a bit, or maybe another way to put it is not being the most strategic in what we're putting on Facebook and Instagram as our content. I hope I'm making sense. tell me in the comments if I'm way off base. But the next one on my list is communicate your business clearly. And we'll go through this in part 2 of what I think your profile pages should look like so that you're communicating clearly. But one of my biggest pet peeves is, I'm on Instagram or Facebook and I see another farm and I'm like, oh, interesting. I wonder what she's up to. I click her profile page and it takes me 5 different click investigative stalker journey to find out where her farm is located. That's not communicating to, and I know in that case I'm not a customer, but if I was a customer, that's not communicating clearly to the customer that might ultimately want to buy from you. If you are making them go through this like multi-site click journey and scrolling to bottom of Instagram or website pages and stuff, trying to find like, what state are you in? Where do you sell? Like, what's your city and town? Like, where do you sell? Or when are you open? Those sort of things. If you're not communicating clearly, it's just not going to be as successful. You're not going to gain followers as easily. You're not going to convert to customers and people buying from you as easily if you're making them work a lot. So communicating very clearly, like, it's kind of the joke in the intro to our YouTube channels, but it's like the reason I do that like very concise, like 2-sentence pitch is so that when people click on our video, they're like very quickly and instantly given like a very quick Cliff Notes version of like who we are. Like, why do I care? Why am I going to keep watching your video? Or why am I going to follow your Facebook page kind of pitch? Make it really easy. And I think you'll see your following grow a lot easier when you communicate kind of those like those more passive things on your landing page. So communicate clearly. And then kind of tied into this is making it easy for customers to interact with you and your followers to interact with you. And so be alive. Don't post. Okay, you check the box for posting that day, which is totally step 1. Really good you did that. But then if you put your phone down and you don't show up again until the next day to do another post, you're not optimizing the algorithm and a chance to interact with your customers if you didn't just die and just disappear like a ghost. So liking when people comment, like giving it a heart, or if you even have the time verbally, really responding to them, like, oh my gosh, I love your bouquets, instead of just a heart reply and be like, thank you so much for that encouragement. I'm so glad you like them. Respond to that, because we might think incorrectly, but the algorithm does count our interaction as well. And so if we're really alive on our page, we're interacting with customers, we're interacting with comments and engagement, Facebook also and Instagram also really likes that, because they know that the people that engaged with your posts like that. They want to feel like they can connect to you. And it's not just this like AI chat bot that made your post and then there's no other signs of life from you. Being able to respond to people and have them see your personality and that you're really thankful that they commented, or you're really excited, or you're glad they're there. That sort of thing helps the algorithm, but customers really, really love it. And so feeling like they can connect to you, the farmer, the business owner, is going to be really valuable in being successful on your social media pages. And so last section on my notes, I don't even know how long we've been going, but if you've made it this far, I'm super proud of you. And I hope you're feeling encouraged, or at least like you're getting your arms around how to do better at social media and really bring it into your business plan. But the pitfalls are kind of the opposite of all of the success ones that I just mentioned. And so the first one obviously being inconsistent posting. So as frustrating as it might be, that one post randomly a week is just not going to be it. The algorithm will not promote you. It's not going to work in your favor. And it's going to be a very, very long slog to increase your social media presence if you don't commit to more regular and consistent posting. And again, I keep plugging part 2, but I think part 2 of this video series is going to be really helpful because I'm trying to lay the foundations now so that when I give you super practical things to do, you feel encouraged to go do them and to work them into your daily routine and have them start being a part of your process. And then you'll start to see success, and then it does become easier when things get rolling a bit more, stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is it becomes easier to post consistently once you feel like you've got your arms around what it is you're doing. The next one, again with the opposite, is content that's not connecting with your customers. And so again, if you're creating content for flower farmers and your customers are not flower farmers, ultimately you're going to struggle to grow because you're not talking to them. It's kind of like they're, peeking through the curtains of you having a conversation with someone else. And they're kind of like, well, they're not talking to me. It's not super relevant to me, but I just watched it. Or I saw that reel because it showed up in my feed. Really think about when you go to create something, who am I talking to? And once you've answered that question, like, why am I talking to them? Like, what benefit does it bring my business that I've chosen to talk to that person and communicate with that person? So back to like the ranunculus corm thing. I joked about how like we've seen 18 million ranunculus corm soaking videos that are super technical and detailed. Well, okay, so you're soaking your ranunculus corms. I joked that like something funny you could do would be like post a picture of them soaking and then have the caption to your customers be like, I wish I was a warm ranunculus corm taking a bubble bath on this cold December morning or something, and your customers can completely relate to that. They're like, you're right, it is freezing today. And maybe you get some comments about the weather, like, I woke up to ice on my windows, or, there's a comment. That's a good engagement. Or someone's like, I absolutely love a bubble bath, or, and you get a laugh emoji or a heart because it made someone chuckle. It's like, that is a good fusion of you sharing what you're working on, which is flower farming, but making it accessible to the customer that doesn't need to know or is that interested in like super technical farming advice. So hopefully that's like a good comparison example of how to take content and make it so that you're talking to the person that supports your business and not just talking to like the industry in general or colleagues and other flower farmers in general. Another pitfall can be just not essentially asking for engagement. Not every customer or person that's interacting with your content knows what the algorithm is or what can help your business. Like someone might very much love your farm, but they don't know that commenting or liking is really beneficial to you. We've all watched YouTube videos, and Eric and I do this. We're like, hit subscribe, hit like, ring the bell. And we're not doing that just because we want just like the emotive feeling of look how many people liked us. The reason we're asking for it is the more you like this video, the more Instagram is going to share it to other people that like flower farming content. I kind of joke, it's like, You Can't Eat the Grass YouTube channel has like 100,000 followers. Well, the algorithm knows who those followers are. And like, you like our video, they're going to be like, maybe those people will like this video, and then more people see it, and then it's really beneficial to us. So that's why we say like subscribe and like and share. Sometimes you just got to ask your customers and be like, I'm so excited for the new year. I can't wait for tulip season. Please consider sharing with friends and family that you think would love flowers. Or do you know someone locally that absolutely would love tulips? Share this post with them. Just ask. Not every single time, but maybe every couple weeks, do a post where you're just directly saying like, would you share this? Would you tag a friend or tag a flower bestie that you'd love to pick up flowers with? And then they tag that person, then maybe that person follows you because they didn't know about you. Asking for engagement sometimes is really beneficial, and it doesn't just sound obnoxious if you do it tactfully. And then last but not least, it goes in line with communicating your business clearly. One way to think about it is the amount of effort a customer needs to put into interacting with your business can be kind of like burning calories. And you want your customers to burn the least amount of calories, so expend the least amount of effort to get what they want out of your business. So back to my previous example, if I have to burn calories to go through 4 different links and scrolling to figure out what darn town you grow flowers in, you've asked me to burn a ton of calories, and a lot of customers won't even go that far. Like they'll do 1 or 2 clicks and they'll be like, this is super annoying, X out, and they've moved on, you know, because you've made them burn too many calories. And so being really thoughtful about how can I present my business, my social media page, my content? If you have a website, how can I present it in the clearest possible way so that the calorie burn on my customers, my followers, is really low? And when it's low, it's an enjoyable experience to them. It's enjoyable. So again, I threw my notes away and I still need them. But that was our part 1. And I want to give you again a teaser for part 2. So again, maybe you'll subscribe and follow. Definitely come back for part 2, where I want to take all of this like higher level conceptual arguments I've made and to really like step by step break it down for you. And so we're going to try to get a little fancy with our editing and put up here on the screen like what my analytics look like on Facebook, to put up like how I schedule posts, how I decide what to post. I'm going to try to put together a graphic that's like content ideas so you can like screenshot me and save it for some ideas and really helpfully hold your hand on how to do a lot of these things. And then once you get going, you'll start to feel a lot more comfortable with the process, and you can kind of loosen the reins a bit on what you feel like is very like template following, and kind of be like, okay, I get these principles. I get what my customers want. I'm starting to see trends. I'm starting to see the content my customers really like. And then you can really make it your own in your social media. So I'm really hoping part 2 will be very practically helpful. I hope this was helpful. I really do not want to be a social media discourager, but I want to be very blunt and honest about how to be successful on these platforms, because success ultimately is the most encouraging thing. And so talking clearly about what these platforms are and are not and how to use them successfully hopefully leads to a lot more followers for you and feeling good about when you open up social media to create content and not frustration or despair. So because I said to ask for engagement, I would love it if you commented on this video or shared it with other flower farmers on Instagram and all that. But wait, I just told you not to talk to flower farmers on Instagram. Post it in the flower farming groups on Facebook. That's different. That's not your business page. But share it if you found it valuable. And we really appreciate you guys being here. And I'm really thankful for all the encouragement you give us in our content creation. We are very thankful for it. We'll see you in the next video.